I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd send her own to prison. But let me tell you something, when you're standing on a stranger's lawn, watching police cars scream toward the house where your husband is dying, and your neighbor is screaming at you to stay back, you start questioning every single decision that brought you to that moment. My name is Margaret Lawson. I'm 72 years old. I was a school principal for 33 years. I've seen liars, cheats, and bullies. I thought I knew how to spot darkness in people. I was wrong. Because the darkest secret I ever uncovered? It was wearing my son's face. Hello everyone, before we continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel, and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. Now back to the story. It was on a Saturday morning in late September, 3 years ago. I remember because the maples in my yard had just started turning that deep, bloody red they get right before they drop their leaves. Beautiful and dying at the same time. Fitting, when I think about it now. I was alone in my house in Waterbury, Connecticut, a colonial-style place Henry and I bought back in 1981 when we thought we'd fill it with grandchildren someday. That never happened. We only had Ethan. And Ethan, well, Ethan stopped coming around 5 years before that morning. The estrangement started when he married Claire. I didn't trust her from the beginning, too polished, too quick with answers, the kind of woman who smiled with her mouth but never her eyes. Henry thought I was being overprotective. Let the boy live his life, Maggie, he'd say. So I backed off. And slowly, Ethan slipped away. By that September, my husband had been making weekend trips to Westfield, 2 hours away, claiming Ethan needed help with his business. Some tech startup that was supposed to be the next big thing. Henry would leave Friday evening, come home Sunday night, exhausted and quiet. When I asked how Ethan was doing, he'd just nod. Fine. Everything's fine. But I'm a principal, remember? I know when someone's hiding something. That Saturday morning, I'd had enough of the loneliness. Enough of tiptoeing around the fracture in my family. I decided to surprise them, show up unannounced with a homemade apple pie and maybe, just maybe, start putting the pieces back together. I packed the pie, threw in some old photo albums I thought Ethan might want to see, and drove toward Westfield with my heart doing that nervous flutter you get when you're about to do something brave and possibly stupid. The drive should have calmed me. Rolling hills, autumn colors, classic rock on the radio. But the closer I got to Ethan's address, the tighter my chest felt. I kept rehearsing what I'd say. Hi, sweetheart. Surprise! I brought pie. Too casual. I was in the neighborhood. A lie, I was never in Westfield. I missed you. Too desperate. God, when did talking to my own son become this hard? I pulled onto Maplewood Drive just after noon. It was one of those picture-perfect suburban streets, manicured lawns, American flags, minivans and driveways. The kind of place where people waved at strangers and nothing bad ever happened. Ethan's house was a modest 2-story at the end of a cul-de-sac. Beige siding, black shutters, a small front porch with 2 rocking chairs that looked like they'd never been sat in. My stomach twisted. This was my son's home, and I'd never been invited inside. I grabbed the pie from the passenger seat, took a deep breath, and opened the car door. That's when I noticed how quiet everything was. No kids playing. No lawn mowers. Just this heavy, watching silence. I walked up the driveway, my shoes crunching on the gravel, and that's when I saw him, the elderly man from the house next door, standing on his lawn, staring at Ethan's place like he was waiting for something terrible to happen. I gave him a polite nod. He didn't nod back. I was 3 steps from the front door when he moved. Not walked, moved. Like someone 40 years younger, rushing across his lawn toward me with his arms up. "Stop," he shouted. "Don't go in there." I froze, pie tin trembling in my hands. "Excuse me?" They called 911. He was breathless, eyes wide with something between fear and urgency. "5 minutes ago, ambulance, police, don't go in." The world tilted. "What are you? Who called? What happened?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "I don't know. I just heard screaming, saw your son run outside to call." That's when I heard them. Sirens. Faint at first, then growing louder, closer, that wailing sound that makes your blood run cold because you know it's coming for you. 2 patrol cars came screaming around the corner, lights flashing, and my heart, oh God, my heart just stopped. The pie slipped from my hands. I didn't even hear it hit the ground. Officers jumped out, hands on their belts, moving toward the house with purpose. One of them, young, maybe 30, held up a hand as I tried to follow. "Ma'am, please stay back. That's my son's house." "What's going on? Is someone hurt?" But he was already moving past me, and then the front door burst open and I saw Ethan. My boy. My only child. His face white as paper, his hands shaking, and he was saying something to the officers, pointing back inside, and I couldn't hear the words but I could see the panic. Behind him, more movement. Paramedics rushing in with equipment. "Ma'am, are you family?" A woman's voice, calm, professional. I turned. A detective, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a badge clipped to her belt. I'm his mother. Margaret Lawson." "What happened?" "Please. Your son is fine. But there's been an incident." "Is your husband Henry Lawson?" The ground dropped out from under me. "Yes." "Why? Where is he?" She didn't answer. She just looked at me with this expression, pity mixed with suspicion, and said, "Come with me." I don't remember walking to the house. I remember the neighbor, later I'd learn his name was Mr. Alvarez, trying to take my arm and me shaking him off. I remember the smell of fresh-cut grass and copper, that metallic scent you don't forget once you've smelled it. The detective led me through the front door. The living room was chaos. Paramedics crouched around someone on the floor at the base of the staircase. Equipment everywhere. Urgent voices overlapping. "Pulse is weak. Possible head trauma. We need to move him now." And then I saw his shoe. Brown leather loafer. The ones I bought Henry for his birthday last year. "Henry!" I lunged forward, but the detective caught me. "Mrs. Lawson, let them work." "What happened to him?" One of the paramedics glanced up, young woman, blonde ponytail, and her expression told me everything I needed to know. This was bad. "Ma'am, we're taking him to Westfield Memorial. You can follow in your car." "Was it a heart attack? A stroke? Tell me." The detective's grip tightened on my arm. "It appears he fell down the stairs. But we won't know the extent of his injuries until..." "Fell?" I stared at the staircase. 15 steps, carpeted, a sturdy banister. Henry was careful. He'd never. They lifted him onto the stretcher, and I finally saw his face. Pale. So pale. Blood matting his silver hair. Eyes closed. An oxygen mask covering his nose and mouth. "Henry." My voice broke. He didn't move. Didn't respond. They wheeled him past me, and I caught a glimpse of his hand, limp, fingers curled, and something inside me just cracked. "Mom?" I spun around. Ethan stood in the hallway, Claire behind him. My daughter-in-law looked like she'd been crying, mascara smudged, hands twisting together. But Ethan looked guilty. "What happened?" I whispered. "It was an accident." His voice was too fast, too defensive. "He was coming down the stairs, he slipped, Mom. I tried to catch him but..." "Where were you when he fell?" I was in the kitchen. I heard the noise and..." "You were in the kitchen." I repeated it slowly, tasting the words for lies. "And he just fell." "Yes." The detective was watching us. Taking notes. "Mrs. Lawson, we'll need to ask you and your son some questions. But first, let's get you to the hospital." I drove in a fog. Don't remember the route. Don't remember parking. I just remember walking into that ER, asking for Henry Lawson, and being told he was in surgery. "How long?" "Could be hours, ma'am." "Please, have a seat." I sat in a plastic chair that smelled like disinfectant and fear, and I waited. Ethan and Claire arrived 20 minutes later. They sat across from me, close, but not too close. Claire kept whispering to Ethan. He kept nodding. I stared at them. My son. The boy I'd rocked to sleep. The teenager who'd brought me dandelions and called them flowers. The man who now couldn't look me in the eye. "Ethan," I said quietly. "Tell me exactly what happened." "Mom, I already..." "Tell me again." He swallowed. Dad was upstairs. I was making lunch. I heard a crash. I ran out and he was at the bottom of the stairs. I called 911 immediately. Was he conscious? For a second. He tried to say something, but... What did he try to say? Ethan's jaw tightened. I couldn't understand him. "Liar," something whispered in my head. "You're lying." But I didn't push. Not yet. A nurse appeared, middle-aged, kind eyes, the type who'd seen too much. "Mrs. Lawson? The doctor wanted me to let you know, your husband's blood work came back. There are some abnormalities." "What kind of abnormalities?" She hesitated. Glanced at Ethan and Claire. Elevated levels of anticoagulants. Blood thinners. Was your husband on medication for that? No. He takes blood pressure medication, that's all. Another glance. The doctor will explain more when he's out of surgery. But the levels are unusually high. High enough to cause excessive bleeding from even minor trauma. The room went cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if your husband fell, the medication in his system made it much, much worse." She walked away, leaving that statement hanging in the air like poison gas. I turned to Ethan. "Did you give your father blood thinners?" "What?" "No." "Why would I?" "Then how did they get in his system?" "I don't know, Mom." His voice rose, cracked. "Maybe he was taking something we didn't know about. Maybe. Henry tells me everything." Silence. Claire started crying. Real tears this time, or a good performance, I couldn't tell. And that's when Detective Chin walked in. "Mrs. Lawson, could I speak with you privately?" We stepped into a small consultation room. She closed the door. "I need to be honest with you," she said. "This incident, we're treating it as suspicious. My mouth went dry. Suspicious how? The security cameras in your son's house. The footage from this morning was deleted. Deleted. Yes. Specifically, the footage from the hallway and staircase. Everything from 6 a.m. to the time of the 911 call, wiped clean. I couldn't breathe. Who has access to delete footage? Your son and daughter-in-law. It's their system. The walls were closing in. You think my son? I couldn't finish the sentence. Detective Chen's expression was careful. Neutral. I'm not jumping to conclusions. But when someone falls down the stairs and the cameras mysteriously stop working, we have to investigate. Especially when the victim has unexplained medications in his system. What are you saying? She leaned forward. I'm saying that this might not have been an accident, Mrs. Lawson. And if it wasn't, I need to know if you've noticed anything unusual about your son's behavior. Any financial troubles? Any tensions between him and your husband? The truth was right there, pushing at my teeth. Yes. Henry had been different. Distant. Tired. He'd lost weight. He'd stopped smiling. But this was my son. No, I whispered. Nothing. Detective Chen studied me. She knew I was lying. If you think of anything. She handed me a card. Call me. Day or night. I walked back to the waiting room in a daze. Ethan and Claire were gone. A nurse told me they'd left, said they needed to get some air. I sat alone, holding Detective Chen's card, and I thought about all the times I'd told my students, the truth always comes out. Lies have a way of surfacing. Henry was in surgery, fighting for his life. My son had deleted security footage. There were drugs in my husband's blood that shouldn't be there. And somewhere in this nightmare, there was a truth I wasn't ready to face. I looked down at my hands that had graded papers, wiped tears, held my son when he was small, and I realized they were shaking. What if the person who hurt Henry, what if it was someone I loved? So let me ask you something, because I need to know I'm not crazy. If you discovered your own child had done something unforgivable, something that could destroy your family forever, would you have the courage to face the truth? Or would you bury it to protect the people you love? Because in the next 72 hours, I was going to find out exactly what kind of woman I was. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that answer. They say a mother's love is unconditional. But what they don't tell you is that unconditional love can make you blind, deaf, and dangerously stupid. For the next 3 days, I became a woman I didn't recognize, someone who looked at evidence and called it coincidence, who heard lies and called them confusion, who saw guilt written across her son's face and called it grief. Because the alternative? The alternative was unthinkable. But here's what I learned in those 72 hours, the truth doesn't care if you're ready for it. It doesn't wait for permission. It just keeps building and building until the weight of it crushes everything you thought you knew. And honey, I was about to be buried alive. Henry didn't wake up after surgery. The doctor, a tired-looking man with kind eyes and terrible news, told me they'd stopped the internal bleeding, repaired the skull fracture, and reduced the brain swelling. But Henry was in a coma. Medically induced? I asked, clinging to hope. No, Mrs. Lawson. His body shut down from the trauma. We're monitoring him closely, but... He paused, and I knew what came after but was never good. The next 48 hours are critical. If he wakes up, there may be memory loss, motor function issues, speech problems. The fall caused significant damage. The fall. Everyone kept calling it that. The fall. Like it was some natural disaster. An act of God. But false don't delete security footage. I sat beside Henry's bed in the ICU, holding his hand, the one that wasn't hooked up to IVs and monitors. His face was swollen, bruised purple and yellow. A bandage wrapped around his head like a grotesque turban. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound telling me he was still here. "Henry," I whispered. "I need you to wake up. I need you to tell me what happened." Nothing. Just the beep 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 of machines keeping him alive. Ethan came to visit that evening. Alone. "Claire had a migraine," he said. He stood in the doorway like he was afraid to come closer, hands shoved in his pockets, eyes red-rimmed. "How is he?" "Alive." "Barely." I didn't look at him. Couldn't. "The doctor says the blood thinners made everything worse. Made what should have been a survivable fall into." I gestured at the broken man in the bed. "I don't understand how he got those medications," Ethan said quietly. "Dad never mentioned." "Henry tells me everything." I finally turned to face him. Every medication. Every doctor's appointment. Every ache and pain. He wouldn't hide something like this. Ethan's jaw tightened. Maybe he forgot. He's been different lately. More forgetful. Different how? Just distracted. Tired. I thought it was his age. There it was again, that feeling like I was being handed a script, and everyone was reading their lines perfectly except me. "Ethan." I stood up, moved closer. "Detective Chin says the security footage was deleted." "Why would someone do that?" His face went pale. "I don't know. Maybe it was automatic? The system's been glitchy." "Don't lie to me." The words came out sharper than I intended, and Ethan flinched like I'd slapped him. "I'm not lying, Mom. I'm trying to figure this out too." We stood there, mother and son, with 6 feet of space between us that felt like miles. "Go home, Ethan," I said finally. "Get some rest." He hesitated, then nodded and left. I watched him go, and a terrible thought whispered through my mind. What if my son is a stranger? I barely slept that night. Kept replaying everything in my head, Ethan's face when the police arrived, Claire's smudged mascara, the way neither of them could look at Henry's broken body. The next morning, I went back to Ethan's house. The police had released the scene, but yellow caution tape still fluttered across the front porch. Mr. Alvarez was in his yard again, watering flowers that didn't need watering, watching me with those sharp old eyes. "Mrs. Lawson." He set down the hose and walked to the property line. "How's your husband?" "Critical. Coma." I unlocked Ethan's front door with the spare key I'd forced him to give me years ago. "Did you see what happened, Mr. Alvarez?" He shifted uncomfortably. I heard shouting. Maybe an hour before the ambulance came. Couldn't make out words, but it was angry shouting. My stomach dropped. "Between who?" "Your son and your husband." Then it went quiet. Then he trailed off. Then what? Then I heard the crash. And the screaming. I thanked him and went inside before he could see my hands shaking. The house was too clean. That was the first thing I noticed. Not a dish out of place. No coffee mugs. No newspapers. Like someone had scrubbed away any sign of life. But they'd missed the guest room. Henry's suitcase was still there, half unpacked, clothes folded neatly the way he always did. His reading glasses on the nightstand. His pills. I picked up the pill organizer. Monday through Sunday, morning and night. Every compartment still full except. I counted back. He'd been taking something every day for at least 2 weeks. I dumped the contents onto the bed and sorted through them. Blood pressure medication, the one I knew about. Aspirin. And then, small white tablets I didn't recognize. No label. No prescription bottle. I took a photo with my phone and kept searching. In the drawer of the nightstand, I found a spiral notebook. Henry's handwriting, the same careful script he'd used for 50 years. My hands trembled as I opened it. September 3rd, dizzy again today. Almost fell in the shower. Ethan says it's my blood pressure. September 7th, nosebleed lasted 20 minutes. Can't seem to stop bleeding from small cuts. Very tired. September 10th, Claire made dinner. Felt sick after. E says I'm getting a stomach bug. September 15th, my hands won't stop shaking. Forgot what I was saying mid-sentence. E looked worried. Or was it something else? September 18th, found pills in my vitamin bottle that I didn't put there. When I asked E about it, he said I must have mixed them up. But I know I didn't. Something is wrong. September 21st, I think they're poisoning me. The notebook fell from my hands. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at those words, I think they're poisoning me, written in my husband's shaking handwriting. No. No, no, no. This wasn't real. This was paranoia. Henry was old, confused, maybe early dementia. But the pills. The symptoms. The deleted footage. Have you ever had a moment where your entire reality just shatters? Where everything you believed about your life turns out to be a carefully constructed lie? That was me, sitting in that guest room, holding evidence that my son, my baby boy, might be trying to kill his own father. I couldn't breathe. I stood up, paced, sat back down. Read the journal again. And again. I think they're poisoning me. My phone rang. Detective Chen. Mrs. Lawson? We need you to come to the station. We've recovered some of the deleted security footage. The station smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Detective Chen led me to a small interview room, gray walls, metal table, that two-way mirror you see in crime shows. Before I show you this, she said carefully, I want you to understand that we're still investigating. Nothing is conclusive. But, you need to see it. She set a laptop on the table and pressed play. The footage was grainy, fragmented. Timestamps jumped, 6:47 a.m. to 8:23 a.m. to 11:04 a.m. Someone had tried to delete it, but forensics had pulled pieces from the hard drive. First clip, Henry coming down the stairs slowly, gripping the railing. He looked frail. Unsteady. Second clip, Ethan in the kitchen doorway, watching Henry. Just watching. His expression unreadable. Third clip, this one was longer. Henry at the top of the stairs. Ethan approaching from behind. They're talking, no audio, but I could see Henry's mouth moving, see him shaking his head. Then Ethan reaches out. Henry turns. Anne. The clip cut off. That's all we recovered from the actual incident, Detective Chen said. But Mrs. Lawson, look at the timestamp. Your son approached your husband at 11:47 a.m. The 911 call came in at 11:52 a.m. What happened in those 5 minutes? I couldn't speak. There's more. She clicked to another file. This is from 2 days before the fall. New footage, nighttime, the guest room. Henry asleep. The door opens, a silhouette enters, moves to the nightstand, does something with the pill organizer, and leaves. The figure's face never fully appears in frame, but I knew that walk. That build. Ethan. We believe he was adding something to your husband's medication, Detective Chin said gently. The blood work showed warfarin, a powerful anticoagulant. In high doses, it's basically poison. It thins the blood so much that any injury becomes catastrophic. Stop. My voice cracked. Please stop. Mrs. Lawson. He's my son. He wouldn't, he's not a killer? Detective Chin finished. Maybe not intentionally. But someone was systematically poisoning your husband for weeks. Someone deleted the security footage. Someone stood at the top of those stairs with him. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. I need air. We're bringing your son in for questioning tomorrow, she said. And Mrs. Lawson? We've subpoenaed his financial records. If there's a motive, we'll find it. I didn't go back to the hospital right away. I couldn't face Henry, couldn't look at his broken body knowing what I now knew. Instead, I sat in my car in the police station parking lot and did something I'd never done before. I called Ethan's bank. I need to know about my son's accounts, I told the customer service rep. I'm his mother. This is an emergency. They couldn't give me details. Privacy laws. But they could confirm something. Ma'am, there are several accounts under Ethan Lawson's name. Is there a specific one you're asking about? Any that include my husband's name. Henry Lawson. A pause. Keyboard clicking. Yes, ma'am. We show a joint business account opened 6 months ago, and 3 personal loans co-signed by Henry Lawson, totaling. Another pause. $217,000. The world tilted. When were these loans taken out? Over the past 8 months. The most recent was 5 weeks ago. 5 weeks. Right when Henry started staying at Ethan's house. Right when the journal entries began. Are the loans current? No, ma'am. All 3 are in default. Collections has been trying to reach the cosigner, that would be your husband, but no response. I thanked her and hung up. $200,000. In debt. In default. With Henry's name on the paperwork. So let me ask you something, if your child was drowning in debt they couldn't pay, and the only way out was getting rid of the person whose name was on the loans, what would they do? How far would desperation push them? I knew the answer. I'd seen it in Ethan's face the moment the police arrived. I'd seen it in that security footage. And God help me, I'd been making excuses for it. I texted Claire, we need to talk. Now. Alone. She agreed to meet at a coffee shop 20 minutes from the hospital. Neutral ground. She looked terrible, no makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. She ordered a latte she didn't drink and twisted a napkin into shreds. How's Henry? She asked. Still unconscious. Still fighting for his life. I leaned forward. Claire, I know about the loans. I know about the debt. I know Ethan's business is failing. Her face crumpled. Fresh tears, real ones this time, I thought. Maybe. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered. The business, we invested everything. Ethan was so sure it would work. But it didn't. And we kept borrowing, thinking we could turn it around. Using Henry's name. She nodded, ashamed. Ethan forged the signatures. I told him not to, but he said your dad would understand eventually, that we'd pay it all back. Did you know Ethan was poisoning him? Claire's head snapped up. What? The warfarin. The pills in Henry's medication. Did you know? No. God, no. Margaret, I swear I didn't. She grabbed my hands across the table. Ethan said the pills were vitamins. He said Henry asked him to add them to his organizer because he kept forgetting. I didn't know. I pulled away. But you knew something was wrong. You saw Henry getting sick. Dizzy. Bleeding. She was sobbing now, mascara running again. I thought he was just old. I didn't. Margaret, you have to believe me, I would never. Where were you when Henry fell? In the bedroom. I heard them arguing. Ethan and Henry. I heard Henry say he was calling a lawyer, that he knew what Ethan had done with the loans. Then I heard. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I heard the crash. And you did nothing. I ran out. I saw Henry at the bottom of the stairs and Ethan standing at the top, and he looked at me and said, she choked. He said, it was an accident. Tell them it was an accident. There it was. The confession I needed but didn't want. Claire. My voice was ice. Did Ethan push him? She closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I don't know, she whispered. But Margaret. I think he did. I left Claire sobbing into her cold latte and walked back to my car like a zombie. Everything was crumbling. My son was a forger. Maybe a poisoner. Maybe a murderer. My husband was in a coma because of him. And I was the mother who'd been too blind to see it. Detective Chin called as I was driving back to the hospital. Mrs. Lawson, we're executing a search warrant on your son's property tomorrow morning. The forensic accountant found the forged documents, combined with the footage and the medical evidence. She paused. We're going to arrest him. I wanted you to hear it from me first. Okay, I said numbly. I need to know, will you testify if this goes to trial? Would I? Could I stand in a courtroom, raise my right hand, and tell a jury that yes, my son did this? Yes, he poisoned his own father. Yes, he pushed him down the stairs. Could I be the reason my only child went to prison? I don't know, I whispered. You're going to have to decide, Mrs. Lawson. And soon. She hung up. I sat in the hospital parking lot, staring at the building where Henry was fighting for his life, and I thought about a Bible verse I used to teach my students, the truth will set you free. But they never tell you what the truth costs. So here's my question for you, and I need you to really think about this, is blood really thicker than water? Or is there a line, somewhere, where love has to step aside and let justice do its work? Because I was about to find out where that line was. And I had a terrible feeling I was going to have to cross it. You know what's worse than discovering your son is a monster? Discovering you saw the signs all along, and chose to ignore them. For years, I'd been a school principal spotting trouble before it exploded. I could see manipulation from a mile away, except when it was wearing my son's face. But over the next 48 hours, every lie Ethan had ever told me was about to unravel, thread by thread, until there was nothing left but the ugly truth underneath. At 7 a.m., Detective Chin texted, "We're executing the warrant at 9. Thought you should know." I texted back, "I'll be there." Can you ever really know someone? Or are we all just strangers wearing familiar faces? I arrived at 8:45. 3 patrol cars. At exactly 9 o'clock, they knocked. Ethan opened the door in sweatpants, coffee mug in hand. His face went from confused to terrified when he saw the badges. "Ethan Lawson, we have a warrant to search the premises." Detective Chin held up the document. "What? Why?" Then he saw me behind the officers. "Mom? What's going on?" My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. Officers filed inside. Claire emerged in a bathrobe, face swollen from crying. "This is insane." Ethan's voice rose. "Dad fell. It was an accident." "Then why did you delete the security footage?" Detective Chin asked calmly. "I didn't. We recovered it, Ethan. We saw you entering your father's room at night. We saw you at the top of the stairs. We know about the loans." His face went white. "I want a lawyer." "Ethan Lawson, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, and attempted murder." "MOM." His eyes found mine, wild and desperate. "Tell them. I'm your son." Part of me wanted to scream that they had it wrong. But I looked at him, really looked, and saw it. Not innocence. Calculation. He wasn't asking me to tell the truth. He was asking me to lie. "I can't," I whispered. The handcuffs clicked shut. "You're choosing him over me?" His voice turned to ice. "I'm choosing the truth." "The truth?" He laughed bitterly. "Dad was dying anyway. I just sped things up. We needed the money." The detective cut him off, leading him away. "You'll regret this," Ethan shouted. "When I'm in prison and you're alone." I stood on that lawn, watching my child disappear, wondering if he was right. Detective Chin led me inside to Ethan's office. On his laptop, emails between him and Claire from the past 4 months. From Ethan, "The business is dead. We're losing everything." From Claire, "What about your dad?" From Ethan, "He refused. Said he wouldn't enable my poor decisions." 3 days later. From Ethan, "Dad's life insurance is $500,000. If something happened, we'd be okay." From Ethan, "That guy from med school who got kicked out. He can get us what we need. Small doses. Just enough to weaken him. Then one accident, and..." I read them 3 times. My son had planned this. Researched it. This was premeditated murder. "We need you to testify," Detective Chin said. "With these emails, the footage, and Claire's cooperation, we have a case. But your testimony makes it solid. If I testify, he goes to prison for 20 years? Yes. When does protecting family become enabling evil? I need to think. Mrs. Lawson, this isn't revenge. It's justice, for Henry, for every elder abused by someone they trusted." I returned to the hospital in a daze. Sat beside Henry, took his hand. "I don't know what to do." Then, his fingers twitched. "Henry?" His eyelids fluttered. A nurse rushed in. 20 minutes of chaos, doctors, tests. Henry's eyes opened, found mine. He whispered, "Ethan." "Don't talk," the doctor said. "You had a fall." "No." "Push." He pushed. The room went silent. They recorded it. Official statement, Henry Lawson stating his son pushed him. When the doctors left, I sobbed. I should have protected you. His weak hand squeezed mine. Not your fault. Our son, sick. Margaret, testify. Stop him. But he's a killer. You taught, truth matters. Remember? I remembered every lecture about integrity, doing the right thing when it's hard. I'd taught those lessons for 33 years. Now it was time to live them. That night in my hotel room, I made a list. Protect Ethan, he's my son. Prison destroys him. I lose him forever. Testify, Henry almost died. Ethan showed no remorse. He planned it. Truth matters. I called Detective Chin. I'll testify. Are you sure? No. I was terrified. Heartbroken. But certain. Yes. I called Ethan's lawyer next. I'm testifying for the prosecution. Silence. You're condemning your son. I'm telling the truth. Without your testimony, we can cast reasonable doubt. Then work harder, Mr. Patterson. I hung up, hands shaking but mind clear. Love isn't about protecting people from consequences. It's having the courage to step aside and let justice work. Before the hearing, I visited Ethan at county jail. Orange jumpsuit. Handcuffs. We sat separated by plexiglass. You came, he said, surprised. I had to look at you one last time. So you're really doing this? Yes. Because what you did was wrong. You taught me survival. Never give up. I was fighting for my life. Not by killing your father. He was dying anyway. You're weak, Mom. Too weak to protect your own child. Henry woke up. He's testifying too. The color drained from his face. He's awake? That's impossible. The drugs should have. He stopped. Realized his admission. The drugs should have what, Ethan? Killed him? Silence. You're going to prison. And I'm helping put you there. Because that's what mothers do when their children become monsters. I hate you. I know. But I love you. And that's why I'm doing this. I hung up the phone. Walked out. Didn't look back. 2 days later, I sat in the witness box. Raised my right hand. Swore to tell the truth. Ethan stared at me with pure hatred. The prosecutor asked about Henry's health. The estrangement. What I'd found. I answered clearly. Honestly. Mrs. Lawson, do you believe your son attempted to kill your husband? The courtroom held its breath. I looked at Ethan. Saw the boy who held my hand. Saw the man who poisoned his father. Yes. I believe he did. You bitch, he mouthed. The judge ruled sufficient evidence for trial. Ethan denied bail. As they let him out, he turned. I'll never forgive you. I know. But maybe someday, you'll understand. He laughed bitterly. That my mother chose a dying old man over me? No. That I chose justice over comfort. Truth over lies. And love, real love, over blind loyalty. They took him away. I walked out with my head high and heart in pieces. Is it possible to do the right thing and still feel like you've lost everything? Can justice and grief exist in the same space? The answer, I learned, is yes. Yes to all of it. You're probably wondering, did I ever regret it? Did I lie awake wishing I'd made a different choice? Did I second-guess myself every time I thought about my son in a prison cell? Let me tell you what happened in the months after that hearing, and you can decide for yourself whether justice was worth the price. Because here's what nobody tells you about doing the right thing: it doesn't feel righteous. Most days, it just feels like loss. But sometimes, loss is the only honest thing left. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I testified on day 3, told the jury everything. The journal, the emails, the deleted footage. Claire testified too, admitting she knew something was wrong but was too afraid to stop it. Ethan's lawyer tried to paint me as bitter, choosing my husband over my son. Tried to suggest Henry was senile, the drugs accidental, the fall just terrible luck. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty. All counts. Ethan didn't look at me when they read the verdict. Just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Sentencing came 2 weeks later, 20 years total. He'll be 56 when he gets out. I sat in the back, alone, and watched my son led away in chains. He turned once, our eyes met. That look said, "This is your fault." Maybe it was. Henry came home 4 months after the fall. Not to our house, to a rehabilitation center. The damage was permanent. Partial paralysis on his left side. Slurred speech. Memory gaps. But he was alive. I visited every day. Fed him. Read to him. Held him when he cried from frustration. 6 months in, he looked at me with those clear blue eyes and said, "You saved my life." "No," I whispered. "I almost lost you. You chose truth. That's love, Maggie. Real love." I don't know if I believed him then. I'm still not sure. But I held his hand, and we survived. 18 months after the trial, a letter came from prison. Ethan's handwriting. "Mom, I hope you're happy. I hope destroying your only son was worth it. You chose a dying old man over me, your own flesh and blood. Dad will be dead in a few years anyway. When he's gone, you'll be alone. No husband. No son. Just you and your precious justice. I'll never forgive you. When I get out, don't expect me to come looking. You're dead to me. You should have protected me. That's what mothers do. But you were too weak, too self-righteous. I hope it was worth it. Ethan." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, put it in a drawer with old family photos, and whispered, "It wasn't betrayal, Ethan. It was justice." Today, Henry and I live in a small assisted living apartment. He uses a walker. I help him dress. We watch old movies and tend a tiny balcony garden. He's not the same man I married. Neither am I. But we're here. Together. Alive. People ask if I ever hear from Ethan. I don't. Claire divorced him during trial. Moved away, changed her name. I don't blame her. Mr. Alvarez, the neighbor who warned me that day, sends Christmas cards. "You did a brave thing," he wrote. I'm not sure it was bravery. Maybe stubbornness. Or maybe the realization that love without accountability isn't love at all. It's enablement. Cowardice dressed as loyalty. So, did I regret it? Some days, yes. I think about a little boy bringing me dandelions, and I wonder where that child went. But most days? I look at Henry, at this man who survived his own son's attempt to murder him, and I know I made the only choice I could live with. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about drawing a line and saying, this far, and no further. I love you, but I won't let you destroy another person. And sometimes that line costs you everything. But you draw it anyway. Because the alternative is standing by while someone you love becomes a monster. I couldn't watch my son walk free knowing what he'd done. So I chose truth over comfort. Justice over family loyalty. Grief over willful blindness. Was it worth it? That's not for me to answer. That's for you. Now I want to hear from you. If someone you loved committed an unforgivable act, would you turn them in? Would you choose justice over family? Or would you protect them, no matter the cost? Drop your answer in the comments. Be honest. There's no right answer, only the one you could live with. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the hardest stories are the ones we need most. Thanks for listening to an old woman's truth. Remember, sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is draw a line and refuse to cross it, even when love is begging you to.